I have 3 tips for you in Avowed that are not fixable. If you make these mistakes early game, you do not get a chance to correct it later. These are unchangeable things. Number 1, the Ranger tree. You are going to want to get Tanglefoot, and then at level 5, you are going to want to grab Scavenger. It doesn't matter what your other points are going into, you're going to want Scavenger at level 5. This is because herbs do not respawn. This is an upgrade material for your weapons and your armor, and it does not respawn. So if you miss out on these extra upgrade materials, you cannot fix it later. And then rank 2 will become important later. That is crafting upgrade materials. You are also going to want that as soon as possible. Now, number 2, very, very important. You're going to want to break down everything you are not using. So that means if I am playing a bow build, I will break down every wand, every shield, every grimoire, every hammer I am not using, because they will give me upgrade materials, as you see here. And then you will take those upgrade materials and you will throw those into the camp where you upgrade your weapons. You can select at the top where it says crafting, and you will craft a higher tier upgrade material, which will be cheaper because of Scavenger. It all works together. Now, when you go to destroy, if you destroy a unique like this here, if you go to what it breaks down into, you're going to see it has more broken down materials and it gives you Adra. Adra is going to be the material that keeps you from being able to upgrade between tiers. Now you might be thinking, well, what do I do why do I need a bunch of, for example, blue Adra, which I'm going to need purple Adra to upgrade a weapon to the next tier anyway? Because you can also upgrade your Adra to a higher tier. Now, with all of that being said, what should you be focusing on upgrading? This is probably the most important tip I can give. You should figure out a weapon or a piece of armor you are just going to keep and throw every single material into it. Because, for example, the long touch here, as soon as it hits legendary quality, every legendary weapon I find from then on is going to be base legendary quality. That means that when I break it down, I'm going to get the higher tier Adra, the higher tier materials, which will then allow me to pile that up to upgrade that same weapon until eventually I hit legendary quality, and then I can go and put it on other weapons or armor, for example. Armor is the same thing. Look at that. Look at all of these upgrade materials that are legendary because it's a legendary tier. I'm not finding legendary tier gear in the wild. Naturally, I'm not finding legendary tier upgrade materials like the toadstool yet, but because I've siphoned all those uniques and thrown them into one item, I now have access to the higher tier items, and what I find from now on will also be higher tier uniques. Now, what this also means is that, for example, if I go back to the original zone and I find a unique I've never loaded before, that unique will now be legendary quality as well. This is basically a thing where if you are a hoarder, if you are someone who doesn't destroy uniques and legendaries or whatever you want to call them in the games like this, RPGs, you are going to miss out on this Adra. And you are going to find yourself, even if you dismantle everything else, you are going to find yourself stuck at these Adra breakpoints until you start destroying your unique gear. But if you don't start destroying that and realizing that until, let's say, Zone 3, you're going to have lower tier Adra because all of those legendaries you found are going to be a lower tier because your highest tier legendary unique you're using is going to be a lower tier. I keep messing up legendary with unique, but you understand. Essentially, If you are playing this game and you are not destroying your items that you aren't using, and you aren't also using this to make your upgrades cheaper, you are going to be worse off than if you didn't do it. It means you're going to constantly hear your character say that your armor is too low, your weapon is too low. No matter how much damage you squeak out from other things, and it might feel okay, at the very least you're going to have your allies yelling at you about how bad your gear is, which to me, personally, is not a fun time. I don't like being yelled at by my allies because I didn't upgrade my gear. It also just means my gear, I know, will be able to stay at a high quality and do a lot of damage. Now, as I said, this cannot be fixed. I cannot overstate this. If you go and you pick up all these legendaries and you haven't been destroying them as you go, you're going to have a whole bunch of legendaries that even if you decided later you wanted to use them, you are not going to have the materials to actually upgrade those legendaries because you haven't been destroying legendaries to have enough high-grade materials to do it. It is, in my opinion, a bad system. I don't like it. I am a collector. Even though I'm playing a bow build and I've kind of like zeroed in on that early on, especially once I got a hold of this chest body, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I zeroed in on it. But if I don't destroy, I make my gameplay worse. I am actively making my character worse. Hopefully, this helps some people out. Hopefully, this has people not make the mistake I did. Some other small tips I'll throw in there. These items here in this menu, you can sell them for money. Why is money so important if I'm just going to salvage everything into my uniques here? Because one of the things you can buy is going to be Adra. And you can buy it at a variety of tiers depending on your shops. And then you can even buy the weak ones and slam it together to get the next higher tier. And you can do that until you get yourself exactly what you need to upgrade your gear just a little bit faster. And you might be thinking, well, is it worth it to be slightly faster? Well, as soon as you hit that next breakpoint, yes. If you go from blue to purples, you're going to start getting purple stuff when you destroy uniques. And you're going to get the purple Adra. And then if you go from purple to the next one, you're going to start getting those. So yes, it is very important that you just keep building and building and building and building. Now, does this suck for people that are going to find a weapon later that they're going to want to switch to? No, not really. Because as soon as you switch to another weapon and you decide that is the weapon I want, you can break down your main weapon you've been using. The new weapon you found is going to be of a higher quality because the weapon you were using before you found it was a higher quality, and you are still going to have all the benefits. It is probably my biggest complaint with the game. So far, let me see if I can see how many hours I am in this game. I am 50 hours into this game, and my biggest complaint right now is I just do not like this weapon upgrade system, and part of the reason I think I don't like it is they didn't explicitly explain it. It didn't, no one told me that you are going to make your character worse if you don't do this. So I'm just hoping that if you watch this, I know I'm rambling a bit, but I just want to really let it sink in that if you do not do this, your character will be worse at every single point of the game. And if you mess this up, you are not going to be able to take it back. You are not going to be able to refine those legendaries. You are not going to be able to do that. You're going to want to push this as hard as you can if you want the most damage as you go. Maybe that's not your playstyle. Maybe you're just going to play a weaker character, or you're on a lower difficulty where it doesn't matter as much. But especially if you're someone who pushes those high difficulties, you don't want to miss out on all that damage. And the stun numbers go up like crazy when you go up a quality. It is so, so important, in my opinion. Hopefully it helps you out.